Breadcrumbs. A curious word, isn't it? It conjures images of something small, almost insignificant, crumbs left behind, a faint trail on a path through the woods. And yet, in relationships, breadcrumbs can be something far more insidious. Today, we're diving into a question both haunting and liberating. How does a secure person react to being breadcrumbed? Breadcrumbing. A peculiar game of giving just enough to keep someone hoping, dangling, waiting. A text here, a compliment there. And yet never the full course. It's a masterclass in subtle manipulation, whether intentional or not. For those who crave connection, breadcrumbing can feel like walking a tightrope above a void. Just enough rope to keep moving, but not enough to feel secure. But here's where it gets fascinating. The way someone responds to being breadcrumbed says a great deal about who they are, not their partner, not their situation, but them. And a secure person? Well, they react in a way that many might not expect. Now let me tell you about a man I once knew. Let's call him Edward. Edward was the epitome of a securely attached person. Grounded, thoughtful, and with a quiet strength that didn't seek attention, but commanded respect nonetheless. One day, Edward found himself in the company of someone who breadcrumbed him. Let's call her Vivian. Vivian was captivating, enigmatic even. She'd send Edward messages late at night, peppered with sweetness and intrigue. She'd promise plans, hint at something deeper, and then, poof, vanish for days. Edward, a man of patience, observed this pattern, not with desperation, but with curiosity. A less secure man might have clung to those crumbs, hoping they'd someday form a loaf. He might have twisted himself into knots trying to decipher her intentions. But Edward, he did something remarkable. He called it out. Not with anger, not with accusation, but with the kind of calm that leaves no room for ambiguity. "Vivian," he said one day over coffee, "I've noticed something. You're wonderful company when you're here, but your presence feels like a guest at a party. Sporadic, fleeting. I value connection, not glimpses of it. If this is the rhythm you prefer, I understand, but I won't dance to it." What a line, eh? And here's the brilliance of it. Edward didn't beg for more breadcrumbs or demand a feast. He stated his needs plainly, without shame or fear. He respected himself enough to set boundaries and trusted that, should Vivian choose not to meet him halfway, someone else would. Now this is the heart of how a secure person reacts to breadcrumbing. They don't spiral into insecurity or cling to the scraps. Instead, they recognize their worth. They understand that love, real love, is not a scavenger hunt. It's a steady, nourishing meal shared openly, not crumbs tossed from a high table. But let's go deeper. Why does a secure person respond this way? It's not because they're unbothered or immune to disappointment. No, secure people feel pain, just like anyone else. But they've cultivated an internal compass, one that always points them back to self-respect, to self-awareness. A secure person knows that breadcrumbing is not a reflection of their value. It's a reflection of the breadcrumber's uncertainty or lack of readiness. They don't take it personally because they understand something vital. Other people's behavior is about them, not you. Imagine for a moment, if you will, a vast, serene lake. The surface ripples when the wind blows, but the depth remains calm, undisturbed. That's the emotional landscape of a secure person. They might feel the ripple of disappointment when breadcrumbed, but they don't let it disturb their depth. They observe, they process, and then they decide, not from a place of fear, but from a place of clarity. And here's the kicker. When a secure person walks away from breadcrumbing, they don't slam the door shut with resentment or bitterness. They leave it open, just wide enough for the other person to step through, should they grow and choose to show up fully. But until then, the secure person moves forward, not out of spite, but because they know they deserve more. This, my dear friends, is the difference. A secure person does not engage in the tug-of-war of, why don't they care more? Or what can I do to make them stay? They recognize that their worth is not negotiable, not something to be chipped away at by the crumbs of inconsistency. Now let me share one final thought. You might be wondering, what if I'm not secure? What if I've clung to crumbs and lost myself in the process? And to that I say this: security is not a birthright. It's a practice. It's built brick by brick through self-awareness, boundaries, and, yes, disappointments. Each time you choose to honor your needs, to walk away from breadcrumbs, you step closer to that calm, steady lake within yourself. So the next time someone offers you crumbs, pause, breathe, remember Edward, remember the lake, and ask yourself, am I dining at the table of connection or scavenging in its shadow? A secure person knows the answer, and now, so do you. Isn't it time you did the same?